I want to bring in our guest, and he finished here in Ventura County, had to head south to his home and just arrived back. Traffic was a little heavy, but he is here waiting to speak with us. And so please welcome our attorney, Robert Tyler. We finished the court case, and at least today, the court hearing. I want you to fill everyone in on what took place. Hey,
well,
I want to begin. You can go through the case, but you can explain it from this perspective. We come out of the courtroom, and my phone rings, and it's my wife. And she had been listening in, and she heard that, she figured out we'd lost. And she says, "So does this mean you're going to jail?" And I said, "Bob, can you come over and take this call?" And you were masterful in assuaging Michelle's concerns. And she wasn't frightened. She just wanted to know what it meant. I mean, she's tough as nails. And she just wanted to know if she had to make my side of the bed. That's all. I'm kidding. But could you, as wonderfully as you explained it to Michelle, can you let everyone viewing know what happened today?
Sure. So, I mean, the easiest way to say that what happened today just simply extends what's been going on for the last 3 to 4 weeks. There's an order. It was an order issued not by this judge, but it was a temporary restraining order issued by a previous judge. And after the temporary restraining order was issued, we had a hearing on a contempt motion that was brought by the county, and that went in front of Judge O'Neill, who we now have. Now, Judge O'Neill, I don't think he necessarily felt real comfortable or desiring to even issue a sanctions against the church or to try to put you in jail.
No.
Basically, when the county sought contempt charges because the church continued to operate, it was the judge's option to fine you, potentially put you in jail, or other, even members of the congregation. They could have ordered the sheriff to come in and haul away everybody that comes to church. I love to see the fact that so many people came to church in spite of that.
Yeah, amen.
And so, but as we see, after that hearing on the contempt, the judge issued an order that you would have to pay, or that the church would have to pay $3,000. Thereafter, nothing happened, right? The county seemed to back down and decide maybe they really don't want this fight. Maybe they don't want to try to come and put you in jail. There was this hearing today that we had on calendar. And that was, whenever you have a temporary restraining order, there will be a hearing on a preliminary injunction thereafter to decide whether or not a preliminary injunction should be issued by the court pending a trial. And so basically the judge today extended the temporary restraining order and just extended it to the date of trial. And, unless the county comes in and seeks to engage in some further enforcement action, things are going to go on status quo with the church. You've said that the church is going to keep meeting on Sundays, and you're going to go about business as normal. And at this point in time, we'll see. I don't think the county's going to come out, because if they do, I think it's going to make them look bad. I don't think that the politicians at this point want to come and cause you to be sanctioned any further, or to try to get you put in jail. I mean, imagine that. Imagine the national headlines that would come as a result of that.
Hey, Tim Frisch with A Frisch Perspective here. That was Pastor Rob McCoy and his lawyer giving an update on the legal situation concerning Godspeak Calvary Chapel in Ventura County as they continue to meet indoors in spite of government restrictions. It sounds like their situation is kind of going a lot like John MacArthur and Grace Community Church's situation, although they are in a different area of California and they have different legal counsel and they're facing different judges. So there are some differences, but essentially Pastor Rob McCoy is considered being in contempt of court at this time, and yet he's still continuing to hold services and really he's not backing down. Also, the court doesn't seem like they're really taking action. The county there doesn't really seem like they're coming down on Pastor McCoy or the church, although there are some threats there. And so you could see that in the video. His wife had some concerns that maybe he would be put in jail, but to this point they haven't done anything. Really, they're just threatening, and they're not really taking much action against Pastor McCoy or the church. So again, a lot like Grace Community Church's situation. Ultimately, they're waiting, I think, for a full hearing court case in the future where things can be decided more definitively. But at this point, it's really just the county and the church going back and forth. Now, I did see an article here that tells a little bit more about it. Judge issues injunction against Newbury Park Chapel. Pastor plans to keep defying court. This is from September 29th by Kathleen Wilson. It says at the beginning, editor's note, this story has been updated to show that the fatality rate in Ventura County stands at 1.2% out of the total number of confirmed cases. This is one of those statistics that it's really based on confirmed cases, but there might be a lot more existing cases that haven't been confirmed. And so it's really hard to tell with the numbers sometimes what really is happening. A judge issued a preliminary injunction Monday to force the Godspeak Calvary Chapel and Pastor Rob McCoy to stop holding indoor worship services, but McCoy said afterward that the Newbury Park Church won't comply. The injunction replaces a temporary restraining order issued 2 months ago, a short-term measure that courts take to gain compliance. A preliminary injunction typically lasts until the matter goes to trial and a judgment is rendered. This could be many months away, although it's possible that the public health orders forbidding indoor services could be lifted by then because the county will have met the state standards for containing COVID-19. The church's attorneys asked Ventura County Superior Court Judge Vincent O'Neill Jr. not to impose the injunction, saying that neither the law nor the amount of reported disease justifies the closures of indoor services they argue infringe on religious liberty. O'Neill said the First Amendment and the right to practice religion are treasures to be carefully guarded, but that at this point he believes the county government's position forbidding indoor services to protect public health is the right one. O'Neill said he found the defense experts had impressive qualifications and were making arguments that needed attention, but that attention would come at trial if the case goes that far. O'Neill did not want to overrule the findings of the county and state public health officials on measures that should be taken to contain the pandemic, citing an opinion written by Supreme Court Chief Justice John Roberts in a separate case. The article continues on talking about how the county had already told the church they weren't supposed to meet indoors. It says they have continued to do so, which led to a finding of contempt that is still in force. A number of other churches have complied by holding services outdoors, which is allowed by the county and the state. McCoy and his attorneys say outdoor services won't work for a number of reasons, including space restrictions, the need for restroom facilities, and security concerns. So like Pastor MacArthur and Grace Community Church, Rob McCoy and Godspeak Calvary Chapel are saying that it is really difficult, if not impossible, for them to comply with the government restrictions. It's just too impeding on their situation for them to try to meet outdoors. And that's really understandable. You can try to follow government guidelines, but at some point it just becomes unreasonable to try to meet all of the different standards that are put there. And so you may try to follow the guidelines, but essentially you can't really conduct church the way that you're supposed to. I know that California is a very different situation than a place like where I live. There are a lot more people there, high population. There have been high numbers of COVID-19. But again, the argument that these churches are making is that actually the number of deaths is really quite low, and your chances of contracting the disease and dying from it are very, very slim. So they make a powerful point, especially in light of our First Amendment constitutional rights, that we do have the right to meet as people peaceably and to practice our religion freely. So it's just great to see that these churches are willing to undergo some hardship to stand for rights. I know there are a lot of people out there that still have concerns about COVID-19, and they see what these churches are doing as foolish. And I know some of you have said that in the comments. That being said, one thing we have to keep paying attention to is what are the health effects on these congregations? And so far what we've seen is that these people have been meeting for weeks and months, and really it hasn't caused a health crisis. So I think that speaks for itself. That says something right there, and I wish people would pay attention to that. Now, I'm not saying, and I don't think anybody is saying, that we should be foolish in how we go about things. I think it's fine to take health precautions and to be careful. And if there was an outbreak of a disease and people were getting seriously ill, of course we'd want to take more and more precautions. But what we're really seeing in these situations is that even though the numbers at large might sound bad, really in these localized areas like these churches, the disease is not actually spreading, at least not in any noticeable way, and people aren't dying. So I think that really speaks to their case. Legally, what's really happening here, though, is that the counties are trying to make sure that other people don't start disobeying their orders, and so they're trying to make somewhat of an example of these churches. But at the end of the day, the courts, they might say in principle, we agree with the county, but they're really not coming down on these churches. And so the churches seem to be protected. And really, it sounds like the courts, in a way, are just stalling things. And the churches are saying, well, you can say that we're not supposed to meet and say there's a restraining order, but we're going to still keep meeting. And ultimately, things are being put off until full court hearings in the future. That happened with Grace Community Church. That seems to be what's happening here. I also think it's very possible that by the time these situations come to the full court trials, that the restrictions might be a lot looser by then. So again, maybe the courts are just kind of stalling. They don't really want to deal with this and come down harshly on any churches or individuals in churches, and they just kind of want to wait and see what happens as time goes on. Personally, I think that these churches are really showing something important here, that one, we should protect our rights, but also, as they are meeting, is the coronavirus situation something that should really prevent us from meeting? And it seems like, at least where they are, it's not causing any problems. So I think that says something. So those are some of my thoughts on this situation. Just wanted to give you another update, let you know what's going on. I'd love to hear what you think in the comments below. Please try to keep those comments positive and edifying to discussion. But as always, thank you so much for listening to what I have to say from A Frisch Perspective.